You know already it's exam season. So what do you need to do every single morning if you have an exam in the afternoon? I know you think it's easy. I say this every single time. You're probably going to say, revise, just do some last minute revision. But if you do this poorly, I believe and I know that it ultimately reduces your chances of doing well. Some days I used to overdo it, some days I used to underdo it, and they both had the same consequences: tired, overwhelmed, panic. So thankfully for you, I've developed that sweet spot. I did incredibly well in my GCSEs, so I'm going to give you exactly what it takes and what you need to know in order for you to emulate what I did too. But before we begin, if you want to have a say on what videos I actually post on this channel, then I've got a Discord community down below, so you can message me on there. So the structure of this video is essentially going through the day from the moment you wake up to the moment you sit your exam, and all my afternoon exams were at 2 p.m. To begin, I say you wake up somewhat early and eat as soon as possible. When I say wake up early, I don't mean some excessive stuff which is really abnormal to you. Let's say you normally wake up at like 9 or 10 a.m. and you wake up early at 5:30. That's excessive. You don't need to do that at all. I would recommend if you wake up at 9 or 10, you would wake up at maybe 8 or latest 8:30. You may already be thinking like, I probably need to sleep a little bit more because I've got an exam tomorrow. But every single time I did that during my GCSEs, which was only once thankfully, I felt lethargic. I didn't really want to get out of bed. I became more tired, but I'd anticipated that I'd become less tired if I slept more. But I don't know, when I just sleep longer, it makes me more tired overall. And you probably experienced something similar too. But also, when you wake up early, you almost have more energy. You feel more almost excited to go and complete the things that you need to do in the day. And in this case, it's your exams. And yeah, when you go into an exam hyped, or maybe more excited, you're more likely to get those results. But the reason why I say you should eat as soon as possible, which is very different to a lot of the stuff I actually say on this channel. The reason why I say it is because you need to get your energy and your calories in. Your body requires a lot of energy to actually complete the exam because you're thinking at such a fast and intense rate for a sustained period of time. The minimum time I had for an exam was maybe an hour 15. And I really needed that energy that I got in the morning in order to almost get the grade and do the exam as well as possible. So once you've eaten, got your carbs in, and you got your energy replenished, what do you need to do next? Ultimately, if you wake up early enough, I would advise you do a little bit of revision. I mentioned in the intro, if you overdo it or underdo it, you won't be fully prepared for that exam. So you need to find the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is maximum maybe 1 to 2 hours, depending on how much time you have. So yeah, what revision do you need to be doing? Just think, if you had 30 minutes only to revise for this exam, your final 30 minutes, what do you realistically want to look over or want to cover? I know I'm talking a lot about my past experience here, but for me, I felt like I already instinctively knew that I would want to look over something. Like in physics, I would always want to look over refraction and waves. And the way I almost covered this was just reading the textbook over or looking at the notes that I'd made already. This requires so little energy. You're almost just reviewing something. You're not even doing active recall. You're not even repeating it. You're just looking over it. So it just goes into your head for the final time. And I would say for every topic you want to cover, just spend maximum 5 to 15 minutes on each of them. It's just not worth spending an hour or 2 hours trying to learn some new content or content you're not too sure about before this exam, because it simply requires too much energy. And it will actually ruin your focus in the final one. It will almost give you brain fog and make you lose clarity because you're really hoping that topic that you've just looked at will come up in the exam. But if you listened to all of that and said, I don't really want to cover anything in particular for these exams, then just go ahead and warm up using past papers. That's what I would advise for everyone once they've looked over their content for the final time. The only time when I didn't really want to review content was for the sciences. And so I spent 1 to 2 hours in the morning before my chemistry exam doing chemistry past papers. The reason why I would recommend this is because you're not actually going to do the paper as I may have alluded to. What you're going to do is you're going to read the question, then read the mark scheme. You're not doing the paper strictly, you're not doing it under time conditions. What you're doing is you're looking at the mark scheme because that's ultimately what the examiner wants to hear on your paper in your exam. I picked up so many small words and phrases which were underlined in the mark scheme, the ones that the examiners really wanted to hear. And I used them. Not all of them were helpful, but they were still there in the back of my mind in case a similar question would come up. This ultimately just plugs the remaining gaps in your knowledge or the remaining exam technique that you may lack. So let's say you woke up at 8 o'clock. You've had an hour for breakfast, another 2 hours for your revision, and it's now 11. What do you do from there? I'd recommend you eat your lunch as soon as possible, because for me in particular, food ridiculously reduces my performance. I don't know if it's some stupid placebo effect, but recently I had some mock exams. I was doing my philosophy paper and I had eaten lunch at 1 p.m, which was quite late considering I had an exam at 2. And during the exam, although I know I did well in the end, the exam experience was just horror. And had I not eaten and been more locked in, I knew I'd have done better. This is because digesting food uses a lot of energy in your body, but you actually need the energy when you're digesting food to think in your exam, to answer the questions, to do it all properly. And I would recommend you eat latest by 12 o'clock. Or if you want to eat later, you simply just don't eat a lot. But some of you may be thinking now, if food reduces your performance like this, why don't you simply just not eat? I've tried it before. I've tried fasting the whole day before an exam in the afternoon, and I don't recommend it. It worked for my focus. My focus was high and it was good quality, but I did feel hungry. And I know water is an okay replacement, but it just felt really uncomfortable when I was doing that maths paper in the afternoon. And the final thing is, once you've eaten your lunch and it's 12 o'clock and you're heading to school for your 2 o'clock exam, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you speak to all of your friends possible. At the end of the day, you are competing with them too for your grade, but they are also in the same boat as you. They also had to revise. They also had to focus on their diet, focus on exercise in order to be in that place there. And realistically, it's just the nice thing to do. I know this story may not be strictly relevant to the afternoon exams, but every single morning during my GCSEs, I used to sit in the canteen with a bunch of my friends. We filled up a full table and we're all looking over content before the exam we had in about an hour or so. So yeah, it's just a bit of fun. It's a bit of a stress reliever. And I found it just really helped me to not panic or not feel overwhelmed or not feel too tired, because social interaction does that for some people. I know it may not work for everyone, but it's something that's worked for me and it's something I would highly recommend. And by that time, yeah, it's time for you to start doing your paper and that's all in your hands. And if you did find this video helpful, I've got a community link in my description down below. So I'll see you in the next video.